All right, mic check, mic check. One of Masters podcast was made, of course. Got two special guests across from me, Lacey Doe and my favorite, Donald Doe. Your name right? That's Lacey, right? I said it right. That sound right?
I mean,
yes. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, cool. Took a while. I don't know why I just want to keep saying another word. I keep saying Lacey. I don't know why I keep saying that for some reason.
That's not it.
I know. You tell me every time. Every time you make sure I know it's not it. Lacey. That's it, right? Gotcha. Lacey. How y'all been?
Good.
Doing well.
How you been? I ain't seen you in a minute.
I've been good. I've been really good.
Yeah, I see you posting more, you know what I'm saying? You got your videos going, live every Thursday now you said you're gonna do on Thursday, so that's good.
Yeah.
Just consistency. No, if you don't be consistent, I'm gonna let you know, trust me.
I know.
I don't play with the content. How you been, Mr. Doe?
Doing well. Doing exceptionally well.
Well, you consistent, so
Yeah, I try to.
I'm proud of you for that, man. Yeah, do a great job, man. He put some great reels out, man. His reel be
Your last reel was like last week.
Hey, look,
you ain't put nothing
this
up.
This the thing. Oh wow, this the haters is not really. This is the thing, right? This is the thing about the reels though. It's not about how much you put out. It's about like the impact it has when you put it out. So.
But you just had a conversation with me about consistency.
I did, because you was spotty. You were like, hey, I'm like, damn, is it Monday? Is it not Monday? But now I know it's good. And the last one was good. You did real good last time. I didn't expect that from you, because sometimes you be shy, you hold back a lot, and like you was just like candid and open. I said, okay, she in her bag. I even stopped watching half. I'm stop watching them. I'm about to come back later on and see how she did. So I appreciate that. But yeah. So I know today we wanted to talk. And I think it's good because I had you on first last year. I think last year. You've been on a few times, but last year. And I remember just talking about your upbringing and things like that, and how you got into credit repair and stuff. And a good portion of it had to do with your dad. Mm-hmm. All right, but in today's society, we kind of know what was present. So presently, I have a great relationship. Mm-hmm. And then, but I know in that you was like, for I guess a span of time in your life, there wasn't a great relationship at some point.
Right.
So what I want to do today is just kind of, use y'all's story, y'all talk about things and open up to things. And my goal for this is for somebody to watch this and to either, if they have a good relationship with their kid, whether it's a daughter or son, whatever, for them to keep that going. If they don't, for them to second guess it and kind of, use y'all to, have a better relationship. Because me knowing y'all now, I wouldn't think that the stuff that you say, how you feel that way. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. So, because you're a lady, we're going to start with you, okay? I just want to tell, and I want to walk you into this. I want you to tell me, like, don't just go ahead and just, start stabbing, throwing punches, I want to just be like, hey, look, just tell me, like, what your upbringing was like, what the presence was like or lack of presence was like and what you thought about it. And in time, I will be stopping. I'm going to ask some questions just to kind of get his perspective on that part of the life.
Okay. Well, from what I remember growing up as a child, we had a lot of good moments. A lot of people don't really, like when I started to talk about where I grew up at and stuff like that, like I remember the trailer, the second one. I don't remember the first one, but we lived in a trailer in North Augusta or Belvedere, whatever you want to call it. And I remember that trailer very, very clear. And it's crazy because when I talk about it or share like how I grew up, people would be like, you grew up in a trailer? Just like, like, started from the bottom. But we grew up in that trailer. And I remember the first time that he brought a dog home for us, because my dad was a truck driver. He brought a dog home for us, and it was like one of the happiest feelings for us. And it ended up being like our childhood dog. So we did have a lot of good memories. And then I had like a lot of memories that kind of were a little scary. Just because of the dynamic of my parents' relationship. Mm-hmm. And being so young and being able to remember still very clear some of those things, it scarred me a little bit. But we did a lot of things together as a family. We still spent a lot of time together. We did a lot of things at home, and even down to like improvising. I remember at one point, I don't know exactly what happened, but I remember bills going unpaid and improvising in a way of like, you know, we letting up the windows for AC or lighting candles for light, stuff like that, you know. So I am still very grateful for both of my parents because they did definitely make a way. But as far as the presence goes, as a child, I don't remember too much presence. And that was a problem for me. And the presence that I did remember was filled with violence for me as a child, is what I remember. So I would like to say that coming into like my preteens and stuff like that, it did scar me, and it's also the reason why I chose some of the friendships and or intimate relationships that I chose.
Gotcha.
And so
I want to ask real quick. How long were y'all like together as a family, like just all together, like?
I think you and Mom were married for like what, 13 years?
Yeah, it's 13 years.
Okay,
13 years. Yeah.
Okay. So how was you like whenever he left? I guess.
I don't even remember.
So we talking about?
That was in Aiken, and I had to be in elementary school.
Well, that was 2006, so it's 2023 now. So that's 17 years ago. So you were.
I don't know.
How old are you?
What year was you born?
I'm 26.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
All right.
So she was 9.
Okay, so you were young when. But I mean, I guess let me ask that question. I guess it's a better question. How did it affect you, like having a family be together and then not having a family be together? Like, what changed for you? Besides, of course, the dad not being there, but I'm saying, what changed for you? Like, what changes did you see in yourself or within things around you?
In myself, I became very angry. I was angry. I was confused. I was upset. I felt abandoned. I felt a lot of rage, and that's what changed for me. And then kind of seeing what my mom started to go through, because for the most part, my parents were together. My mom didn't work. You know, my dad did most of the providing. So then to have to live with her and trust that she's supposed to provide for us now was a stretch for me. Gotcha. Not saying that she couldn't do it, because my mom always could get good jobs and stuff like that, but we depended so much on my father. So then to have to go from that to this, it was just kind of like, okay, well, what we gonna do about this, or what are you gonna do about this? Like, everything for me changed, because I feel like mindset wise, I then had to become almost like head of household, and be the mother for like myself, my sister, and my mother.
You the oldest?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I guess. Did you blame him for that? Did you
I
blame
did
him?
as a child. I definitely did. So that's where the rage and hate came from. Like, it was bad. I did and I think that for me, I watched him leave, so I seen it. I watched him come in, pack his stuff up, and walk out the door. I watched it. So there was confusion there, like what's going on, like why is this happening? Like, you know, y'all, this is all I know.
Right.
And now, as far as like, you know, a dynamic as far as like you supposed to be with the person that you have kids with and stuff like that, that whole outlook changed for me, because maybe this is not what you're supposed to do. But, you know, is this what it's supposed to be? So that's where most of my hate came from as a child, because I never, even when we went and talked about it in therapy, one of the first things I brought up was I watched you leave. Like, I watched it. It's not, no, my mama came to me and said, your daddy left. Like, I watched you walk past me and walk out the door.
You didn't ask him no questions?
No.
I only asked. I'm not being funny. I know it sounds funny. I joke, but I asked that question because I had a similar experience, not kind of like that, but I watched my dad pack his stuff. I just remember asking him, I'm a kid, like, where you going? He said, I'm leaving. Like, so even if you had asked me, it wouldn't have got no better, because that's even that is like, okay, I'm sick. You leaving? You know, like, all right, why? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like, you coming back?
So okay, so I can understand that aspect of thing, but even the blaming part. So I kind of want to dig into that, because I don't want to blame anybody, but was it things that were said afterward that made you blame him? You just knew, since you saw him leave, you felt like he was the problem because you saw him leave, so you felt like it was his fault because you saw him leave?
Well, I think that it was definitely a combination of both. because there were things that I seen in her, like as a child, our household was domestic violence. It, you know, if we keeping it real, and it was from both parties. It wasn't just on one end.
So you blame your mom too?
No, as a child growing up, no, I did not.
Why not though?
I don't know. You know, just
because she didn't leave. You think because you was with her? So
yeah, maybe because it was just kind of like, well, we here with you, which that whole dynamic starts to change as we, of course, go into this.
I figured that, yeah.
But
I'm curious. I
as a child, it was just kind of like, you know, well, you stayed, so clearly you care, you love me. He left.
I asked that question because two people gonna watch this, right? And somebody gonna be in your shoes, or even if it's a guy, or a boy or a male, whatever. Like, I think we tend to think that the parent that we live with did no wrong. Mm-hmm. Just the one that left is all wrong. Because I guess you don't see him. Yeah,
and also I feel like it also goes to the gender role thing. Automatically, the woman does no wrong if, you know, the man left or whatever. But it was a combination of different things. I would hear my mom talk bad about my dad, and then it was kind of like, well, maybe what she's saying true. He did leave. You know what I'm saying? Gotcha. So it was like things like that, and then the things that I heard and seen as a child, like there were moments where I would have to take my sister in the room. We turn up the TV loud, close the door because they're arguing, fighting, or whatever. So it was a combination of all those things, because to me as a child, I'm thinking, as my father, you're supposed to protect us. I don't feel protected right now. So when he left, it was, so this is how you protect us. Like, you know, mama ain't ever had a job really for real. You've been taking care of us, and this is what you do. Mm-hmm. You know? So.
I know. You got to make a good point. I want to ask you as an adult now. I don't want to skip too much into it. We're going to walk into it. I got to ask some questions in a second, too. But as an adult now, would you say that it's more factors to that than just, you know, mama didn't work, because mama knew she didn't work either, right? Yeah. So I'm pretty sure they both contributed to whatever happened for them to break up, right? Mm-hmm. Like, in hindsight, do you think that should have been her mind as well? Like, you know, this is the provider we got now, so I need to, I don't know, either act a certain way or succumb to certain things. I don't know what was going on, but like, what you think on her end she could have did differently?
As an adult now, I do wish that she stepped up and played more of a mother role and less of a victim guilt role. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, I'm pretty sure it was hard for her to go from 13 years being married to the same man, you know, you have your child with, and then you go from that to by yourself. So I know it was tough for her. So I'm not taking that away from her, but I feel like she kind of sat too long in her pity. Okay. And then you forgot that there was us, you know? So then I'm having to be the memory for you.
Got you. I know, like, you kind of post things about that now, too. I don't know how long that you're saying she sat in that, but how would you compare it to sitting in pity versus, like, I guess trying to heal? Could you talk about healing a lot lately? Mm-hmm. Would you say it was that, or you like, hey, look, no. It was no steps into healing. We just kind of, because those are two different things.
Yeah, they are two different things. I don't feel like there were any steps to healing then. I feel like it was more so of, this is why I'm doing it. You know, my husband left me, blah, blah, blah. So you're using those as reasons to, like, sit in your pity versus those as reasons to say, you know, I got 2 kids depending on me, and they've not had to do that because I had their father. Mm-hmm. So let me step up. Gotcha. So I as a child, even as a child, there were things that she would do, you know, with us living with just her, and I would just be like, this doesn't even make sense. You know, but again, my anger still goes back to, well, you were supposed to take care of me anyways. So if it wasn't for you leaving, this would never happen. Hey, man. So
it's tough being a man, you know. So with that one, I'm going to throw it to you for a minute. You have to necessarily touch on everything she talked about, but give me your perspective of at least that time period of what she kind of described.
Well, I mean, first of all, it was a very troublesome time, especially for her, being the oldest child and being able to kind of really see what was going on. Like she said, she saw me leave. You know, Kaylin was probably 5. So even if she saw me, she probably didn't know what she was looking at. But Lacey knew what she was looking at. And so here's the thing. Like, and there's probably millions of Americans, men and women, that are staying in situations that they want to get out of. And they think by staying, it's going to get better. And that's what our situation was really. Like, I stayed as long as I did for my kids because I knew that if I left, it was going to be what Lacey described. And so a child's vantage point is very important. See, sometimes as parents, because we think that we actually know what happens, we kind of ignore the vantage point of a child. But their vantage point is very important in helping you understand how they view it, because how they view it helps you to help them heal. So listening to her, and we've been to therapy about this, where she talked about, well, I blamed you for this because you left. Shit, I'm supposed to be to blame. I did leave. There's no doubt about it. But when you become older, of course, her perspective is different now. But I had to let her get to that place to where she could kind of like, see it for herself instead of me.
I want to ask you something. I'm sorry. Like how you seem like a patient person, for the most part. Yeah, I knew she was gonna make. Man, Lacey's funny, man.
It's
funny
the
girl.
books.
Oh my God.
It took a long time to get here.
Look. How patient did you have to be, or how was it? That process of letting her see for herself. Because that's a process that parents talk about a lot.
Well, listen, that's why you got us here, because we were going to be very honest. I was not patient. Once I won custody of my children, and then they still were giving me a hard time, I couldn't quite understand why, like, Lacey was still upset. I couldn't.
I got you.
So I wasn't that patient with it. I mean, we would have a lot of arguments between me and her about her behavior, but that was her dealing with some trauma that hadn't healed, and I hadn't listened to her. I hadn't really given her a platform to speak on her trauma until we went to therapy, and then that allowed her to speak on her trauma, and then we had a session together, and I was able to see it from her perspective. Because if you never let a child talk and you're doing all the talking because you're the adult, you never really know what they're dealing with. And I think once I started to hear her perspective, and from her vantage point, I took it all in, and that's when the patience came into play, because I realized, okay, yeah, Donald, you know why you left, but all a child knows is that you left. That's all they know. They don't, and if you're a good parent, that's all they should know. They should not know all the weeds and
right.
I'm leaving because such did this to me or whatever. They got a side child or whatever. They not. It's not their job to know all of that. So basically, I had to be very comfortable with being disliked, maybe even hated, for a period of time, while my daughter, especially my oldest daughter, and I say her especially because my youngest daughter, she's a little different than Lacey. They do stuff differently. Kaylin's more forgiving and just kind of go with the program type, and Lacey's more like, nah, I'm not gonna go along with this program.
Yeah, she got this face on right now. Like, when you sit back on camera, you looking like, ugh. That's how you looking right now. You got to smile a little bit. Like, oh, come on, what you got going on? But I like the honesty. I want to mention, you mentioned something. I didn't want to skip it, but I am gonna skip it. I'm gonna get back to it. It's in my notes. The day you left. Do you remember that day at all?
Yeah, of course. I mean, because it was when people leave. What people don't realize is that the day that you leave, you left probably years before that, months before that. You know what I'm saying? But you just finally got the courage to physically leave. You know what I'm saying? But you had already left prior to that, so I remember it because it took so much to get up to build up the strength to walk out that door. It was the hardest thing that I had ever had to do, was to walk out of that door knowing that Lacey and Kaylin were going to be in a situation with their mother. And so, yeah, I'm always going to remember that day. And I think that my ex at the time, because so much had going on, I think that she probably felt like he's never going to leave. You know what I'm saying? He's just going to continue to whatever. This is, and I think she took some of it for granted. Like I was, like I said, like I was never going to leave. But the day that I left, I remember it very, very vividly. We had a discussion. I wasn't mad, because you get to that point in a relationship where you're not even mad anymore. You're just like, hey, this ain't working out. And you're just nice and calm about it. And she was calm too, but I don't think she realized that I was really serious. Because this had been going on for quite some time. And I felt like I had to leave to be a better father to my children, because I could not be the father that I needed to be being in this environment, because it was bringing out the worst in me. And so I felt like if I'm going to be a better father, I'm going to have to get away from get out of this situation, and certainly not to blame her for everything. We both played our role in making sure that we had a terrible marriage, but I just knew that one of us had to leave, and I knew it had to be me because I was more financially secure, so I could start over. And so I left. And I like I say, I'm always, and it felt bad leaving. It really felt bad. It was really, really, really tough. But I knew that it had to be done.
When I said I was gonna skip something, so you mentioned that a time period of being disliked, right, and maybe hated, right. So when I had this conversation, I wrote this phrase down. And I'm gonna look at Lacey when I say this. It's 18 years of hatred. I want you to kind of explain that, like what you mean when you say that. Like, give me the.
Well, growing up, I didn't see him a lot. He was gone a lot, and that was, of course, it was due to work. But as a child, I don't understand that the reason why you're gone a lot is because you have to provide, and also because the marriage was so toxic that it was beneficial for us in all parties if you just stayed gone. So as a child, I'm thinking, you're never here. You're just never here.
Right,
so when you do come, it's just kind of like, all right, this is temporary, so we'll enjoy it until it ends tomorrow or something.
We drove trucks, right?
Yes. Right. So it was because of that, mostly because of that. Then the hatred came from me seeing things that I felt like I shouldn't have to see, and the measures I had to go to try to not hear it or not see the fighting, or, that was too much. And then as I got older and we went through the custody battle, even that, like I went through a lot being the oldest, because when the custody battle came to play, at that point I was what 13?
Yeah.
I was 13. Young. But although I had all this hate and stuff for my father, I still craved the love and attention that I felt like I was supposed to receive. So when we started going through the custody battle, it just became a whole lot, because I'm living with my mom. So when I'm at home primarily with my mother, I'm hearing how I look like my father. And it don't come out like, oh, you look like your father. It's more so from So I'm just like, okay, I can't do nothing about that. And then it went from you look like him to you act like him. You act just like him. Make me sick. So going through that, and then having to go through a custody battle, and actually having to go, when I say go through a custody battle, I remember having they call him a guardian ad litem or something like that. We had to sit down and talk to this lady. And at this time in my life, I had so much anger. I'm not talking to you about nothing. That's just where I was in life. So we would sit there. We would have to answer questions. I'm just like, yeah, no, okay, whatever. So that, in addition to them coming into the home and looking at how we was living, and, the time frame of once they actually did separate and we moved back to Augusta, there were still so many things I felt like as a child I'm not supposed to see. Like, I love my mother to death, but she did not make the best decisions based on what I could see. You have different men coming in and out. And again, all my anger routes back to it's your fault. Because if you could have just worked this out, we wouldn't have to see this.
Yeah.
So
I get your point of view, but like listening back now that we all grown, it's like it's
really
an uphill battle for a man. Like,
right.
The moment
it's
she
definitely
made,
different now.
he get more hatred. The more things she made, like, Donald.
So going through all of that, and then I remember even going to the courthouse. We had to go to the courthouse, tell them why we want to live with who we want to live with. Then there was this whole ordeal with my mom's side of the family. It was just a lot. So I feel like all of that put me in the space that I was in, and I feel like nobody took time to say, well, hey, Lacey, how do you feel? As he talked about earlier, like nobody asked me how I felt about anything, or, instead, when growing up, I got told things like, oh, you look like you're mad at the world. That's just how you always look. Stuff like that, versus sitting down and actually taking time to figure out, okay, what's going on here? Mm-hmm. Like, why are you acting like this or feeling like this? I remember one time I got in trouble with my mom. It was about something stupid as a child. And she packed up all my stuff and told me she was taking me to a psych ward to check me in. So when I say nobody...
She was serious or...
No, she was serious.
Oh, wow.
So we packed up all my stuff, and I actually went, and they evaluated me, and they told her that there was nothing wrong with me.
That's a bit excessive.
From a mental standpoint.
You blamed him for that too, though?
I mean, yeah, because I feel like if my dad was here, I wouldn't have had to go through that.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? He would have maybe talked her down this or something. So the things that I had to experience as a child is the reason where the 18 years ahead came from. And I refused to have any sort of conversation with him. All of our conversations would immediately go from 0 to 10, like in 1 second. We never could just talk.
What about the custody? So who got custody?
Well, my dad got custody.
But you had to pick where y'all wanted to go.
Well, we didn't really get to pick because there were so many things that he had against her as far as showing like unstable. And I knew that it was more beneficial for me to live with my father. I knew that.
But you said they asked y'all though. Like you had to go to court.
Yeah, I mean, they asked.
Okay.
Well, here's the thing. In the state of Georgia, my attorney, he was like, well, in this state at the age of 14, children can make that decision. I think it was 14. And I said, well, I don't want to put them in that situation. So, so they definitely had that option. But I told my lawyer not to push that because I didn't want them to have any backlash. I said, I'm going to take you from your mama. That way, she can be mad at me. She can't be mad at y'all.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? So I feel like it's imperative not to put kids in these situations. I mean, I feel like I got a degree on dealing with custody battles after dealing with what I had to go through with their mother. But with that being said, I just made sure that my children, I never wanted them to just have to go to court and be like, hey, I want to stay with my dad. Not in front of your mama. That's going to be bad for y'all.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying? So I kept them out of that situation. We thought that it was something that we were going to have to play at one point in time, but with only having one kid of age, meaning Lacey was of age to make that decision, but Kaylin wasn't. So I just had to focus on making sure that I built up a good case for custody, and we did.
What's the mindset like for you as a leader, as a man, to be okay with making that decision? Like, it's okay if they mad at me, even more than they already mad at me.
Right. I mean, listen, man. I mean,
for the betterment of them.
Listen, man. If you're gonna be that kind of parent, mother or father, you're gonna have to realize, man, that being a parent is tough. Like Lacey's talking about 18 years of hate. And so there's a lot of anger there when you feel like, the person that you expect to protect you is not protecting you, So that's why I said I'm always, at this point in my life, very open to listening to how these girls feel, especially about, we can sit there, we can have this conversation because we've been to therapy about this years ago. But, as a parent, you can't get in your feelings. Like, if you're going to be a good parent, like, I couldn't get in my feelings. I had to just accept the fact that, okay, it's going to be rough for me, but when these kids get older, I used to tell their mama this when she wouldn't do certain things, like honor her visitation and stuff. I said, listen, at some point, I mean, you're not handling your business the way you're supposed to now, but at some point, these kids are going to grow up. God forbid they had kids of their own, and they're going to start really questioning some of the parenting, you know what I'm saying? And so you might want to do what you're supposed to do. And so that was my mentality as a father. I was just like, you know what? Let me just do what I'm supposed to do. They can be mad at me. I would always tell my daughters, and Lacey can tell you this, my favorite saying was, I'm not your friend. I'm not your friend. I'm not here I'm not trying to be liked. And they made sure I wasn't liked. So, I was not liked by either one of my daughters for quite some time, but I knew what had to be done for their success long term. I knew that in order for them to be successful, I had to help them overcome certain environmental pitfalls that were around them, and so and I think that we can look back on some of this stuff now, and we can sit here and smile about it and things of this nature. But it was hard going through it. It was hard going through it as a parent. There's a lot of nights that I had to be in the room by myself and talking all kind of, like F them kids, all that kind of language. What I'm saying?
I wasn't going to ask you to say that, but I was going to ask you, like, how do you not develop that oh well attitude?
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
they always mad, so oh well, like F it.
You're a human, so any parent that tells you that, oh, I've never had that moment. You raising teenage kids, and they always long for the parent that's not there. So when I got custody, oh my God, it got worse. You know what I'm saying? Because the parent that wasn't around or wasn't making visitation, things of this nature, oh, well, we'll be better off staying with her because over here we got rules and all this other stuff. You fussing at us 24/7. it was always a tug of war dealing with that. And as a parent that, you know, that has always worked hard to try to do what's best for them long term. Yeah, it was offensive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
a lot of times, you know, some of the stuff that Lacey and Kaylin both would say, but you know, I just had to continue to fight the good fight.
Give me your point of view from the time span of, you know, you left. Like, what was your life like during that time versus what she had to go through?
Yeah, well, first of all, when I first left, of course, I had no idea what they were dealing with their mom. You know, as far as how bad it was, until Lacey would tell me stuff. You know, and then I had to make sure I kept that under wraps, because if it ever got back, see, that's the thing about it. Yeah. You living with your mama right now, and so anything that I go fussing to her about, now you have to get, you know, punished for that. You know what I'm saying? So
how long did it take you to catch on to that? Like let me not say nothing.
I think I caught on to it pretty quick. Okay. I mean, Lacey is a pretty good communicator, so she would just tell me stuff, and as long as it wasn't nothing too crazy, like where I had to say something,
right.
I wouldn't even address it. You know, I would just tell. When Lacey would tell me certain stuff, I didn't mean to say her name, but when Lacey would tell me certain stuff, I would just reach out to their mom and say, hey, you know, I know it's hard on you. Let me just have custody of the kids. You know, we ain't got to worry about child support. Just let me get the kids. Because it was clear that she couldn't, you know, take care of them the way they needed to be taken care of. So I didn't really want to take her to court. With having two daughters, I was trying to let the mother, you know, let their mother raise them, even though I knew that probably wasn't going to work out, but I still wanted to have an opportunity. And it just kind of got to that point to where I said, you know what, I'm gonna have to take you to court. You know, but
and I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but I'm just asking because when you got custody of your girls, did you have any other kids at that time, or just them two?
No, it's
I wish you would
have. So listen, I left her mom back in 2006. Divorce was final in 2008. So I didn't have any other kids.
Okay,
it's just them two. And so it was.
Towing. Add that.
Whoa, what's going on? Why you do like that?
Tell him.
Oh my God.
So, he said, what was life like for you?
You were living a life.
Ooh, he was outside. That's what they call it in 2023.
I asked that question really because, like, last time you came on, you had your wife, and I didn't know how that dynamic was. You know, like did you feel away?
Oh, I definitely felt away. Oh, I definitely felt away. She got it bad for years.
Jesus Christ, Lacey, what's going on? Like, why?
Because I felt like at that time
that's
of
a
him
nice lady,
wanting,
man.
At that time of him wanting to date, like I said, as a child, I remember you not being there. Now you want to date these other women, but if I ask you what my favorite color is, you don't know. So I just felt like it was certain things like that. Although that's something little, I felt like that's me saying, I don't feel like as my father, you know me as your child, but you want to get to know this woman. So when my stepmother did come around, I was still in my, of course, rage during that time. I wouldn't speak. I wouldn't talk to her, you know, because this my daddy. What you want?
Oh, my God.
You know, so it was just kind of a combination of those things. Like now I got to share you with this woman, and you haven't even took time to acknowledge anything I've went through. Oh, and you haven't took time to get to know me at all any. You know, so then you go and add her to the mix. So adding her made it worse in the beginning. And then they took it a step further and got married. So
shame on them. Hell, they thinking. Y'all get married? It's successful? Oh, no. Come on. Get out of here.
but you know what, though? And shout out to her, though, man. You know, she was open to going to therapy together, man, and we got through a lot of this stuff, man, because there was so much trauma there that I just was unaware of. You know, I think that as Black folks, we just kind of ignore trauma, you know, act like it doesn't exist, but she had a lot of trauma there. And so basically when I left that mom, you know, I guess, using her words, I guess I was outside. Hey
man, handsome young man, what you got going on?
So I was outside for a little bit until I met my
driver too? Come on now. Truck driver, man.
Nah, it wasn't even that. But because here's the thing, like, and she's right. You know, when I was with their mom, I stayed gone a lot because I had to stay gone in order to stay in the marriage. If I'd have been home a lot more, we would have got divorced a whole lot sooner. And what ended up happening was when I bought my first truck, I started coming home a lot more because I had more control over my business. And when I started coming home more, that's when things got worse.
Gotcha.
Now I was coming home too much. So we were seeing, me and her couldn't really get along.
Couldn't miss each other.
Right. So basically, it's the first several years when I was in trucking and I stayed on the road a lot, that was the only reason why we was probably still married, because I wasn't home enough to really like deal with it. So I was running from it. But with that being said, Lacey's trauma was real, and I didn't really acknowledge it because I didn't really understand. I didn't really hear it from her. I think as a parent, if you really love your children, if you can listen to their trauma and really internalize, you're like, you know what? Okay, yeah, I can see how that would have made you feel that kind of way. And I think that if you really want to help your children heal, you really have to like give them a platform to speak and really like listen to that. And so I think that's one of the things that helped us our relationship grow. Me listening to her and going to therapy with her. I know I've said that probably 5 times, but
it's important.
It's important. I think there's a lot of parents out here that are mad at grown children without realizing that they played a role in those kids being the way they are and the trauma that they're dealing with. But me as a father, I embraced all of that so that we could try to move forward. One of my favorite books is The Art of Not Giving a F. And in that book, it basically talks about how all the growth that you want is about you going through the pain. You just can't, you really got to go through it. You got to go through this pain if you really want to grow. And I know for me, when I was going through, it was very painful going through some of this stuff with Lacey, because she was able to articulate it. With Kaylin, like I say, because I'm not minimizing Kaylin's, impact, but she was a different child than Lacey.
Mm-hmm.
As you can tell, being around Lacey, she's very opinionated. She's very vocal.
Very, very, very opinionated. Yeah.
But she get that from me, so I can't really,
much.
I can't really talk. Fuss at her too much about it. I mean, she comes by that honestly.
She's like a daddy. Yeah.
Yeah, she really is. I mean, so when her mom would say stuff to her like, you acting like your daddy, I'm not sure that really. I don't think that offended her or anything.
Well, you know what? Let me ask you that because I only speak from a son standpoint, right? Whenever your parent tell you act like the parent and you don't really care for that parent, it kind of pisses you off a little more. Cause like me, probably somebody say, "Yeah, like your dad." I ain't care for my dad. Like I don't want to be like him. So don't say that. It's like a trigger. So I don't know. How was it for you to hear that?
I don't feel like it was a trigger because even though I had so much hate for him, it was still the love and attention I was craving. So when she would the living situation I had with my mother, with me looking so much like my father and acting like him, was bad. Like when he talks about the custody initiated because I called him and told him my mother has jumped on me. And immediately he was like, that's it. I can't listen to no more of your stories and not act on it. So going through so much, so many feelings I got from her because I feel like she took the divorce and all of that stuff out on me. So being the one that gets the backlash from that, when she would say things like, oh, you look like your daddy, I'm like, okay. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing I can do.
You called
about
him,
it.
right? Mm-hmm. So you would call him, like. So technically speaking, you still felt like that was your protection. Still, like regardless of what, you always felt like he still protected you.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I even think like when Lacey talks about how she felt about me, even that. I mean, I think that you got to even almost dig deeper with that, like. Because it's like I hated this guy that I expected to protect me, and I knew that was capable of protecting me, and that I want to protect me. So is that really hate? Mm-hmm. It's almost like I'm hating that you're not here to do what I know, you've always done. So even that you got to almost even unpack, some of that, like what did I really hate? Maybe I hated the situation more so than the individual, but because I'm the focal point, the foundation of the situation. Then I'm gonna get that hate, and you just got to be okay with that. You really everything, even dealing with me on business, everything has got to be long term. Everything, our relationships got to be long term. Everything we do has to be thinking long term. How is this going to affect us? And I guess I was lucky enough to be thinking back then, like, man, you know what? Let me go to therapy with Lacey and really understand what her trauma is, because it was just really getting. It was really tough between me and her. You know.
What's your thoughts on that, Lacey? Like, would you say it was 18 the hatred from him, or more so the situation? Like,
I mean, as an adult, it was the situation, but as a child, it was
that's
him.
how you view. Got you.
You know, so being older, yes, I hated the situation because the situation put me in a space that as a child I shouldn't have been in at 9 and 10. I shouldn't have been, waking my sister up and walking her to the bus. I shouldn't have been, figuring out what we gonna eat for dinner. I shouldn't have been telling my mama, hey, you got too many men coming in. And I shouldn't have been doing things like that.
Gotcha.
That wasn't my responsibility as a child. So, and it comes out, and for the longest I used to struggle with it when, my peers and we would talk, and, we get to talk and they start talking about childhood games and things that they played. I ain't play none of that. I was too busy doing stuff I shouldn't have been doing at 10 and 11 and stuff like that. So, yeah, I do agree. And even with the therapy standpoint, because we do keep saying that we went to therapy, let's just note on how many therapists we went through. Because we went to therapy. We started therapy when I was 13. We didn't go to therapy until I was 18, where we actually started then working on the relationship.
Well, here's the thing. Like at 13, I thought that they just needed therapy. Here's the thing. Like, and I've always been this kind of father. I want to make sure they get the healing that they need first. And I felt like they had a lot of issues with their mom. And I wanted them to kind of like go to therapy and kind of deal with that. Because that seemed to be the imminent need. Like, they had a lot of, especially Lacey had a lot of anger at that time towards her mom. And then I think the more she was living with me, I started, okay, this girl mad at me too. So we need to go to therapy about me too. You know what I'm saying?
You so thinking that with your mom, right?
I did, yeah, because when you got your child calling you, telling you about all this bad stuff that's going on with mama, so I'm thinking, okay, let me get her in a better situation. Now you over here with me. And now we bumping heads on stuff because I done changed her school. That was a big deal. She wanted to stay at her school. I pulled her out of the school. That was the first red flag. Looking back on it, I probably should have let her stay at that school. And she was there with all her friends. But we had moved to Columbia County, so it was a whole nother school. And so that was already one strike when I got custody and changed the schools. But I didn't realize it at first that when I first got custody of Lacey and KK, that there was some trauma with me as well. I was so focused on, helping them deal with the trauma for their mother that I didn't realize that there was also trauma, in our relationship.
Even before you did the custody, so did you not know that it was trauma, like, with them to you?
No, honestly, man, I thought that it was just, I didn't even... I think that here's the thing: when you're going through some of this stuff as a parent, sometimes you so focused on surviving. You're going through a divorce. That's a survival situation, financially, physically, emotionally. All this. You're trying to survive out of that situation. It's a reason why, if you're dealing with certain things financially, one of the triggers that would give you some relief is a divorce, because they realize that it takes a lot out of you emotionally. So I think that, I was so caught up in what I was going through with their mom that I probably missed it. Well, not probably, obviously I missed, any trauma that they may have had because of my decision to leave and anything that they had saw.
Until you went to the therapy with her, did you ever think about the fact that the day you left, how it resonated with her at all?
No, not until we went to therapy and then she talked about it. Because here's the thing: as a parent, you don't know your kids see you.
Right.
You do stuff you don't even know that they really paying attention. Like they're looking at you, but you think that they don't know what they're looking at. Mm-hmm. But she knew what she was looking at, but I just didn't know it. So for years we didn't talk about it because I didn't realize that she knew what she was looking at.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Until we had a talk about it and she broke it down. Like, nah, I mean, that affected me.
It's just so much irony in the fact that, you did the custody, you stepped in, took them, and I guess in your mind, you're like, I'm saving the day. And you are, but then it's like, oh, now I got to deal with this. Because it mattered to me too, not just as one parent.
Yeah, that's an absolute fact. I mean, you thinking that you're putting them in a better situation, and ultimately you are, but you're gonna still have to deal with any trauma they may have this geared towards you as well. And it wasn't until I got them that I started to really kind of understand that, and shout out to Lacey because she held me accountable. She held me accountable, and we got through it.
I just give you a lot of credit because a lot of parents would give up. They'll just get mad, kick the kids out, whatever. Like they're not dealing with it. Like it's more like you cut a line off. You just leave. Then if you want, just leave. You're gonna be here, just leave. But to stand in front of that.
But hold up now. I mean, we hold up.
I definitely got kicked out.
hold up now.
What you did? What you said?
So at that point, I had to graduate high school, and I went to college. Well, I was forced to go to college here.
I remember that part,
yeah. So we talked about that on the last one. So, and I went to Aiken Tech, and initially I started off as nursing because that's what I was forced to go to school for. Nurses make a lot of money, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't want to be a nurse. So at the time of me starting college, I was 17. Technically, I was a minor. So I had to do what I was told. So I went for nursing, and then as soon as I turned 18, I changed my major. And it was before I turned 18 because the school called my dad to let them know I changed my major. So I'm just like, why does it matter? You got me taking out loans anyway to pay for school, so I should be going to school for what I want to go to school for because you're not paying these loans. It's going to fall back on me. But who are you to tell me what I can go to school for anyway? First of all, the issue was, why are you forcing me to go to college when you didn't go? So it was a big thing for me because I'm just like, dude, you're not even in college. Like, you didn't get no degree, and you yelling and fussing at me about making a better life for myself to go to college. Like, you don't have a degree. My nana over here living the life from doing taxes. At the time, my uncle had a car lot. Like, I don't have no example of go to school and get a degree because this is the life for you. Mm-hmm. But he forced me to do nursing. I ended up changing my major to psychology with a minor in law because that's what I thought I wanted to do at the time. Like, if I'm going to go to school and pay for it, I would rather do something I want to do. Well, when he found out, we got into this big argument. And back then, the way that we communicated, our communication styles were I think it was very unhealthy. Very unhealthy, extremely unhealthy. It would be a lot of yelling, cussing, doors slamming, and I'm like, yeah, I don't care. So
you was cursing too?
No, I don't think I've ever. Okay. Nah, slamming doors and ignoring people, ignoring him for sure.
Give him that face.
He calling and texting my phone, decline. I don't care if you pay this bill. I'm not answering the phone.
Jesus Christ.
So, after that, he ended up telling me, like, basically, if you're not going to live in my house and abide by my rules, you can't live here. And I'm just like, because I don't want to go to school for nursing. So, yeah, that landed me out.
It was more than that. But with that being said, what I will say is that another book that I love is The Millionaire Next Door, and it talks about how when people become successful, they don't, especially if they're entrepreneurs, they teach their kids to go out and get degrees and get jobs, mainly because they don't want them to go through the rigorousness of being an entrepreneur. Mm. So it's easier for you to push them towards getting some sort of degree and getting a job. And shout out to Lacey, because she's absolutely correct. I mean, I did push her to do certain things when it came to school, and she's right. I did drop out of college. And it's because I looked at my mom and I was like, man, you an entrepreneur. You ain't got no degree, mama. So I want to do what you're doing. And so I dropped out.
Y'all all like, huh?
Yeah. So I watched her, have a very successful business and to this day. And so I should have known that my kids, and watching me, they would not want to probably go to college, So that was me trying to make life easier for her,
Right.
People look at entrepreneurship and think it's easy, but it's not. And so for your kids, we're always trying to make things easier for our kids. And in doing so, that caused her to definitely have some backlash towards me. And it was warranted because it didn't make any sense. I'm still puzzled by these parents who make their kids go to college when they made their success as being entrepreneurs. So like my son, I won't force him to go to college. I mean, he's going to most likely be an entrepreneur. He's seen too much. And Lacey has seen too much. So once you see that much, it's really hard for you to go take a job, a traditional job.
And I mean, shout out to Lacey too, because like I think that's one of the things. A lot of times, one of the kids has to step up and kind of buck the system a little bit to help the other kids afterwards. Because if not, she go to school and maybe she be successful in nursing, not happy though. You send the next kid to school too. Like you're just gonna keep sending everybody to school and think it's okay.
It's tons of kids out here that are forced to go to school, and they get their degrees because they were forced to do that, and that's not what they wanted to do, and they never really get the chance to tap into who they really are and what their true purpose is. And so that was my way of protecting her at the time. Looking back on it, certainly was not a good decision, and she bucked it. I mean, that's in line with her character.
So you buck a lot.
Low jab.
That's in your character. That's in your character.
I don't know what he's talking about.
You try to laugh it off. She was trying to answer the question at first. Yeah, I'm gonna wait.
Low jab.
But yeah, I talked a lot about just the differences, right? So at the time she's going to school, at what point did you fall back and say, okay, well, then you have to go to school? Like, at what point did you see that? Okay, well,
well, I never did fall back. I mean, basically she left, and so I didn't have to fall back, and she wasn't living in my house anymore. But I think that while she was gone and she was dealing with some concerns where she was at, and we talked about it, and I said, you know what, man, Don, you know, you got to let some of this stuff go, man. You know, she's a young adult. I mean, she'll be okay. I mean, and so I think that while she was gone for a period of time, of course, we kept communicating, and I realized, you know what, if you want to come on back, she had a situation, and she did come back, and we never talked about it anymore. You know, I just wanted her to do whatever it was that she wanted to do, whatever that is, and that goes for all my children.
At what point, Lacey, did y'all relationship start to have a turnaround? Like I said, I know the theme is 18 of hatred, and of course we kind of unpack that. It's not necessarily hatred per se, but at what point did y'all relationship start to be more easygoing, or just I love my dad type relationship versus the past?
Maybe when I came back. I think when I came back, I was 19. And when I came back with the mindset of I'm leaving again, so it didn't matter. And I came back and we were communicating better. That therapy session, it was really that therapy session that turned it around, which even though after the therapy session, I still was a little hesitant about our relationship. But during the therapy session, being able to communicate like clear things that I seen and I heard. And then instead of him saying things like, well, the reason why I did it is because blah, blah, blah. Instead, I got an actual apology. And instead I got, I didn't know that you seen that or heard that. So I feel like that was when things started to turn around, because then I got the acknowledgement and not an excuse for the behavior. Even if the reason for him doing it was very much so right as far as reaction wise, okay, I can understand why somebody would react that way. I didn't get that. I got an apology, acknowledgement, and then from there we started to turn things around. We spent a lot of time together. And I think then that's when we started kind of learning each other, which was learning that we are a lot alike. So then you had to kind of learn how to deal with each other being that we are a lot alike. Mm-hmm. And then I ended up leaving again when I was 20. So I probably stayed at home for maybe a year, and then I left again, and I just found that not living together was most beneficial for our relationship too. So I've been gone since, and that 19 to 20-year-old age range is when I would like to say things turned around. And then maybe within the last couple of years, I'm like, yeah, that's my dog,
But the therapy session was a big portion of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, one thing that I will say real quick, and not to cut you off, is that I don't feel like you get the opportunity to ignore somebody's trauma. So when your children come to you and tell you they got certain trauma, you don't get to ignore that. You don't get to say, well, because I didn't mean to do it, it doesn't count. You know what I'm saying? And I think that when we went to that therapy session and she, expressed certain things, I was just like, I just took it all in. I didn't defend myself. I didn't, because if that was your vantage point, if that was your perception, then that's real. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like they say perception is reality. And so that was your reality at that time. And and you were in a very vulnerable state as a child, and I have no right to sit here and try to spend the whole session defending myself. You know, what I need to do is help you heal from that. And so that was the position that I took, because I knew that her healing was 100% on me. You know, I got to do my part. I'm the foundation. And if I allow her this moment to just say, hey, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you had to go through that. Sometimes that right there is enough to help these children bounce back, because now they've been heard. Their pain has been acknowledged. You know, you didn't fix everything that ever happened to them in their life, but the fact that you acknowledged it gives them permission to heal. And so I think that when we got out of that session and we had conversations about it, it changed our life. Because here's the thing about these girls. Even as a truck driver, I had joint custody, well, they call it joint, but it's really not joint. It was every other weekend. And so I basically geared my whole trucking business around making sure I can get my kids every other Friday. And that's what I did. And so I would tell, at the time, you know, I was dating, this was around 2007. So by then I was dating Michael, my wife. But even her, I would tell her, listen, I got to have daddy-daughter time with the girls on Friday and Saturday. Me and you get together on Sunday. You know, and so they were kind of used to, you know, even though let's say I was outside, I was only outside after I was done with my time with them. You know what I'm saying? So
Gotcha.
I made that a priority, and now you see me getting engaged, you see me getting serious about somebody. I think they would have preferred for me to be outside than for me to be, you know, with one woman, because they thought that was going to intrude on their time, which they had. Hey, I mean, why wouldn't they think that?
You mentioned something though, like her being a kid. Though, like obviously when you planning around seeing them, they don't know that you cutting out your other time for them. So they're not seeing that. So you bring her around, they're like, oh, what's she doing? Why is she here?
Right.
They don't know this whole time you probably been seeing her anyway. It's not like she just popped up.
Oh yeah. So she had been in the picture for a little while before they met her, because I had to make sure she was suitable. The other, as Lisa said, I was outside.
The
Like you know,
Here
they
we
were
go.
not
Listen.
candidates. I mean, so
What's up with you, ladies?
well, listen, there were no other candidates. There was just some casualties of love.
Casualties of love.
Yeah, because when you're going through stuff, when you're coming out of a very tumultuous situation, you're just looking for, you're just looking for some temporary pleasure, so to speak. Not really necessarily looking for love, because in your mind you're thinking that love may not exist.
Gotcha.
And so that's kind of where I was at. And so I was just focusing on being the best father I could be every other weekend when I got my kids. But everything else I wasn't that concerned about until I met Michael. And even then, that was, it took some time for me to really let her in. But yeah, everything was about my kids. I had a bachelor pad, quote unquote, but they had a bunk bed. It was a 2-bedroom apartment, but one of the rooms had a pink bunk bed set in it. You know what I'm saying? So anytime somebody came by my house, they knew, okay, this guy got kids. Yeah. And I can only see you when it's not my kids' weekend, or if I got the kids on Friday and Saturday, I can see you on Sunday.
Gotcha.
Stuff like that. But as a child, of course, you don't really understand. You don't really understand the improvising that's going on. And you ain't supposed to, you know what I'm saying? I feel like if you're a good parent, you're not like, hey, look at what I'm doing for you. I'm only outside on Friday and Saturday, but on Sunday I'm a father, So we don't go into all of that. You just do what you do. And so yeah.
Why are you making them faces for? What's up?
No, I'm just, taking it all in.
What kind of faces they say you made when you was younger? Why you made them faces for?
I tend to talk with my face.
Have you ever tried to not do, or you just like, oh,
It don't work out.
It don't work out?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's funny because I wonder if people think, like, even now, like, people think you're mean. You don't.
They do.
I don't strike that. I don't strike you as that. But I've had conversations with you, so I don't know if everybody feel the same way. Because now,
I'll get the occasional like, oh, I thought you was mean and stuck up. Okay, well, that's what you get for thinking. See, now I'm cool. Now
or just looking at you, hey, you looking like, why the hell you looking at me for?
People be being weird. That's what it means.
Oh, all right. Because like and I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like as a dad, one of the most important things is showing your kids, whether it's a daughter, son, what a man is, right? Because typically, the parent is the first sign of a man or example of a man they see. How did y'all relationship determine what kind of men you liked, or what kind of men you picked, or who you like to be with, rather?
Hold up, you asking me that, or you asking her that?
No, I know you like men. That's but I'm saying, like, y'all relationship, is that something you thought about?
Well, let me say this. I think that a lot of the guys that she dealt with were definitely the
Go easy on them.
go.
Just go in for the jugulars, okay?
Yo, what's up with this girl today, bro?
Every guy she's dated has been a mama's boy, and none of them were ever taught how to be a man. And just from what I've seen from being around them, and none of them met my approval of what it takes to take care of my daughter in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And that's unfortunate. I'm sure their mothers did the best that they can do, but they failed at making them men. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not, when some of these guys are like, better than this. Like, why are you dating this mama's boy? You got to go pick this joke. You got to go pick this man up and give him a ride on y'all date.
Real quick, when you do that, are you making that face that you making people? I hope you're not smiling doing that. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
So
they deserve that face if you're picking them up.
We would get into a lot of arguments about some of her dating choices, going back to high school. Her first love. Because one thing about us, like, even with all the 18 years of hate and all this stuff, I did the sex talk. I took her to her first gynecologist appointment. I did all of that kind of stuff. And I knew about her first sexual encounter.
Because you went through my phone.
Which was very upsetting.
Because you went through my phone.
She's very sneaky.
And then told me you wasn't mad about it. And then you punished me for 30 days.
Okay, all that's true. And she got punished because she didn't talk to me about it. I wasn't mad that she had sex for the first time. I mean, we talked about protection, and so she knew how to, to use proper protection and things of this nature. But she didn't tell me about it. So I think I was upset that I wasn't in the know, because I felt like me and this girl talk about everything. She tell me stuff I don't even want to know. So so when I didn't know about it, I was definitely in my feelings about it. And I did put on punishment because I was in my feelings about it. And but these guys were just they were bums, and no disrespect to none of their moms. Their moms seem to be great people, but I don't know if you can call these guys bums and then say their moms are great people. Hope nobody gets offended by that. These seem to be pretty good young men, but they were bums for what I
from a father's
wanted.
Perspective. So I mean, like, they have to be okay with it.
Yeah, but they don't have to be okay with it. But but
true
this
enough,
is
true enough.
This is
true enough.
But no. I just felt like I wanted her to be with a man, somebody that was going to take charge, and but then again, some of this is my fault because I raised her to take charge. You can't be with a man if they think that you already won.
She's the man.
So I don't know if
Big
some
dog.
of this is my fault, so so
it's some of this is your fault.
So I'm looking at all of this stuff, maybe she can't find, because every guy she dates is weak. Every last one of them,
Damn. Yo, this is crazy.
No, say how you really feel.
This is crazy.
And I don't mean it, yeah, they are weak. And so that's just, and I'm just like, what did I do to drive you towards these weak men, that can't even have a conversation with you. They're not in tune with themselves emotionally and all those other things. Like, you can't grow with nobody that don't talk. You can't grow with nobody that's not financially responsible. See, my kids have been growing up in a different situation now with me. Like, they know that you got to check credit scores, how this dude handling business. How does he pay his bills? All this stuff is way more important than how this dude look.
Background checks
to some degree. You know what I'm saying? What kind of person is it? Is his dad in his life? No? Okay. I don't know. That might not work out. It might work out. I mean, but I'm just saying it's something that you gotta consider. Does he have any trauma? with his mama or his dad that he hasn't dealt with. You know, because I think that she was a bad candidate for some guys, probably because she had trauma. You know, so it may not have always been the guy. I just know that every guy she ever brought home to my house was weak. You know, and I don't mean that to be funny or
y'all emphasize everything. Force, weak, therapy. I love it. This is amazing.
So I just so that's why I'm always telling like other women, find a male figure for your child. I understand that maybe you and the father couldn't work it out, but like find somebody that can help. You can never help. You can't. No matter how great of a mother that you are, you ain't gonna never be able to help him be a man. You know, that's something that you have to see. Mm-hmm. And so apparently the guys that she always dated never saw that, apparently. And so I would really get frustrated at some of these candidates that she would come bring to see me, because I was just like, this is not going to work. You know,
what's that like? Like, so she bring him to see you. Like, is the vibe that day like no, or just like?
Well, I'm nice. I'm really nice. Like, I'm sure that some of these guys, if they watch this podcast, they're gonna probably be like, I ain't know Mr. Doe felt that way.
Thought you had a friend.
It's not that. And they do have a friend, but I feel like friends tell you the truth. You know, you weak. You know, in order to be strong, you have to accept the fact that you're weak. In order to be the kind of man that can take care of a woman, you have to accept the fact that you're a mama's boy. And once you accept that, then it's something that you can correct. And so it's not really a dig at none of them. They you want to be a better man, you got to accept the faults that you currently have. And so, but no, I was always nice to these guys. I mean, so any guy that came in my house, I treated very nice. I never, right, Lacey? I never, tried to bully nobody or none of this kind of stuff. I always was really nice to all these young men.
What's your take? As far as like your relationship and your the kind of men you pick, the candidates.
So I feel like the candidates that I picked came from what I felt like I had been missing from him. Like, even still, getting older and stuff like that, I still felt like I missed the attention and stuff like that from him. So when I would go and date based on somebody giving me attention or making me feel like they were giving me attention and love. Because maybe that's not what it was. Clearly, I mean, that's not what it was.
It could have been a little bit, though. It could have been a little bit. Because you could, I'm not saying they are, I don't know. You could be weak and still give you attention. That's, because you said what you kind of crave what you didn't get from him. Mm-hmm. So they probably had all the quality he just didn't have. Maybe he didn't have time to give you attention or whatever. He working, whatever. That's all they got time to do, give you attention. They just can't do nothing else.
So I think that when I think about my relationships now, that's what I was looking for. I mean, I was, now being older, I am looking at, okay, what about your parent situation and stuff like that? But even still, I didn't realize that I had an issue with that until I went to my therapy session, last month? I think I told you about that. And no, it wasn't last month. It was actually a couple of months before. So last year, I was extremely depressed. And so after we got through the depression, one of my therapy sessions ended up being focused around, why am I choosing the men I'm choosing? So my therapist had told me, she was like, we're going to talk about just your love with your dad today. And we'll focus on your mom on the next session. So she said, with your dad as a child, what did you feel like you were missing? So I told her, I feel like I was missing time and attention. I mean, I knew he loved me, but to feel it, I just, it wasn't there. But I just had to kind of know. So she was like, okay, now we're going to compare this to your relationship. With your relationship, you try to do so much so that you can kind of almost gain approval that you're worthy of being loved. I'm worthy of deserving this attention from you. She said, it's the same thing. So she was like, the same things that you feel like you're missing from your father, you went in these men to go get it from them. That's why you're choosing what you're choosing. She was like, think about it. The same thing you told me that you're not getting out of this relationship. When I asked you, what would you feel like you wasn't getting from your dad? It's the same exact thing. So now that we know that this is what it is, now we can do better. So, and I always knew, I knew that the men I was bringing I probably shouldn't have been dating. I knew, like, I already knew going home, like, oh my God, my daddy gonna get in my behind. Like, I already knew.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off what you just said, though, because I think how you grow up is it matters. You know what I'm saying? So having that, and if you don't, so for you, like, you feel like it wasn't there. You didn't have it. You had a different type of situation, right? For me, like my daughter, I try to kiss and hug them a lot. I feel like, you know, like he said, I don't have nobody weak, but I also I don't want to miss nowhere if I don't have to. You're going to because you're human. So I work a lot now, so I might not give them a lot of attention, but I'll bring them to the studio. I do a lot of stuff with them so that they don't miss. I don't know but you don't mean if I'm tripping. Like, I feel like it's a possibility that I might make it hard for them to find somebody then. Because then what if they try to look for Mr. Perfect every time?
I mean, clearly.
You know what I'm saying? 'Cause I feel like if I'm there, you know what I'm saying? I'm there a lot. You know, I show them attention.
You talking about your kids?
Yeah, I don't want them to grow up and be like, and to think that, because I'm 30, I say I'm 30, I'm 32, but say I'm 30, right? They know a 30-year-old me. They don't know 25-year-old me, even though they was alive, but they don't know 25-year-old me. So I don't want them to be comparing an 18-year-old kid and be like, oh, you ain't like my daddy. I was 30, yeah, I would hope not. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to make it to where they can't be with nobody because they're looking for this exuberant person. Oh, I'm tripping. I should just set the bar high and say, oh, well, F it. That's their life.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, and I think some women are dealing with this where they feeling like they're being told, okay, you need to accept less in order to have some sort of relationship. So you're talking about your children as far as like you're setting a certain standard for your kids, right. And so when they start dating, you hope that they can, you know, find somebody suitable. I mean, you just don't never know. I mean, I think we all rolling the dice as parents. We don't really know what's going to come out of that. So I don't think there's no real way to answer that. Like you're doing something wrong or right. Now I will tell you this: you said something about how you work a lot. That's another thing. See, like when you work a lot, you hear what my daughter's over there saying. So when I worked a lot, you know, to them, shout out to you because you said I bring them to the studio with me sometimes.
A lot.
That's
time,
good.
Yeah.
You know, like my son, he go everywhere we go for the most part, right. because yeah, we working, but to them we ain't there. You know, to Lacey's, her vantage point is, man, my dad wasn't there. You know, and even when I was there, I probably wasn't listening to her. So that's another thing. You can be there and still not be there. And so even when I was there, which I was probably there sometimes more than I wanted to be there, you know, with their mom. But the problem was that I wasn't really there. I wasn't really listening, you know. And so being there is not just about physically being there. You also have to be there emotionally and other ways to make the child feel fulfilled. And so, yeah, it's just that when you just spoke this thing, that was a lot to unpack there about even your own situation. Because you may think that, man, my kids, man, they, they're fulfilled. They got everything they need. Then one day you come to find out, man, you was in that studio every day doing them dumbass podcasts. You're going to be right here like us. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't ever there for me. You're going to be like, what?
Oh, God.
You know, so it's weird, man. It's weird. So,
but with you, right? So, how do you now change that? I know you feel like you picked certain men based off relationship with your dad, but you got a good relationship now. So, like, do you pick it based off now, or you still kind of go off then? Like, how do you determine, like, when it comes to men?
I think that going forward in my dating life, I'll be able to make better decisions. Because even still, you know, most recently becoming single, even still, that therapy session was just a couple of months ago. So it wasn't until then when I realized this is because sometimes I would have moments where I'm just like, I'm never going to get married. It's just not happening. Like, and I would find myself, and that's how I knew I was also picking the wrong men, because I would kind of find myself unintentionally belittling them. Like, you can't even hang a picture up. What you here for? You know, like, get out. I can do it myself. So
hey, that seemed like okay thing to do. I don't know.
Yeah.
A picture. I mean, come on now.
Like, so it would just be little things that would start to make me question, like, okay, am I just going to be single because I keep running into these men that need to be cared for and taken care of and shown that I can't do that, you know, anymore. So it wasn't until that therapy session that made me realize this is where this is coming from. This is why. Now go do better type of deal. Because I feel like people say things like, oh, you know better when you do better. I didn't know. Like, I didn't know where this was coming from.
True.
You know, so I was curious. I was aware there was a problem, but I just wasn't sure. So I feel like going forward in my dating life, yes, now I have the tool that has helped me to now be able to say, okay, I should be making better decisions in my dating life. So, yeah.
You're 26, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What age you plan on getting married? Like, you think it's an age or?
I used to have an age, limit, but now I just feel like,
Still
before
young.
I used to, I am still young, but before I used to more so like desire to be married. And now I've taken that out of being my main focus. So if I just continue to focus on me, work on me, do things that are going to help me improve, the right person should just come around. I'm not going to be out here looking. So I don't have an age, because it should just happen. I don't want to be counting down the clock and I'm like, oh, I'm almost 30 and my goal was 30. I'm not doing that.
Good. I don't want you to do that. I'm good. So y'all relationship like now, like how I know you mentioned the therapy session where it started getting better, but like tell me some other key points of like when you realize like it's better, like a call or a conversation you had, something, an event that happened that just made it to where like y'all super tight now.
Well, it would have to be two things. So, years ago, back in maybe like 2018, I was in my first abusive relationship, and I did not tell my daddy about it. I mean, he met him and all, but it began to get abusive or whatever, and I was so scared to tell anybody, so nobody knew. And then the one night that I had to tell was the one night that it just went too far from a standpoint of like I wasn't sure if I was going to make it out alive or not. So the first person I thought to call was my daddy. I'll just deal with the disappointment later. So I called him and he stopped what he was doing. He came over there and, he forced me to do things I didn't want to do, like press charges. Because in going through that, which is a whole nother session, but going through that mentally, I wasn't in the best place mentally to make a decision. The police officer was like, do you want to press charges? And my dad's like, hell yeah, you want to press charges? Tell him. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, whatever he say. So going through that experience with him and being able to kind of, because I feel like that also was a turning point for both of us, because I seen domestic violence as a child from my parents. So then for him to have to witness his child go through something that I seen him do, I feel like was a turning point for both of us. Because I always had said, I'm never going to end up like that. And I happened to have to call my father to get me out of this situation. Then after that, I was depressed for a long time. They actually let me live. I think I lived with them for like 2 months. And he wouldn't talk. I wouldn't talk. But he was just kind of letting me, be almost in a sense. But that situation was when I started to be more comfortable and open about the relationships I was in and what was going on. Because, he did make a comment that upset me, which was, I don't understand why you want to even still be with him after he doing that to you. But then we had a conversation about it, and I'm like, Dad, like, even though it was a bad relationship, I still wanted to be with him because that's just where I was emotionally and mentally at that time. I knew it was unhealthy. So I didn't need you coming in and telling me how stupid I was. Like, I already knew that. So being able to communicate to him, like, okay, this is how this situation is making me feel, that I'm calling you to get me out of it. And just the way that he handled it started to make me feel more comfortable about coming to him about other things. So, that situation, and then most recently last year when I was depressed, up until probably like the last 3 months, I was depressed. Or probably the last year and a half, it just slowly trickled into being even worse. And we had a conversation. He was at the barbershop. I think we had this conversation in January. And I told him, it hurt my feelings because for the last couple of months, I've been extremely depressed to the point where my therapist recommended I see my primary care doctor, for depression medication. And you didn't notice. And it hurt my feelings. Like, I'm sitting in the house all day. I'm sleeping all day. And, of course, I work for my parents as far as managing their brokerage and stuff like that. You didn't even notice. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So it hurt my feelings that as my father, the one person who knows me better than anybody, you didn't even notice I wasn't in a good space because you was so caught up in whatever you was doing with yourself or whatever. You know? So
whatever you was doing with yourself.
Breathing.
I can't breathe.
So we had that conversation and it made me extremely emotional and, you know, having to talk to him about that. And his response to that was, you know what, Lacey, I'm sorry that I wasn't there for you like that. I had no idea that that's what you was going through. Instead of, well, why you didn't call me and tell me? You know, so it just, the way that he would respond to things that I was sharing with him is what I feel like started to make our relationship different. Now I feel comfortable, you know, telling him like, hey, I had a one night stand. This how it went. You know?
That was a quick jump. You're not going to just skip past that. But I think what you're going to say is like you feel more protected now too. I think you feel like you feel it. Like you feel like you can put them at anything. Like your best friend's almost damn near, right?
She been
I've been telling him.
I was going to say, because I hear what she's saying, but I've been hearing stuff for a long time
just seen it.
that I don't want to hear.
Yeah, but he started to receive things different. Gotcha. Like the way that he would react became different. So then I felt even more comfortable sharing things that like, because even when I talked about our relationship with my friends, like, yeah, I told my dad, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, he know I smoke weed and all. You know, you told your dad that. Yeah. You didn't tell yours? You know, so I knew that we did have maybe what some people would consider like an abnormal relationship, but I feel like us having that relationship makes me feel comfortable letting him know when I'm in danger.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think that, because she's right, like her girlfriends, I think that they looked at it like, you tell your dad? My thing was that like, you know, if you're doing something that's going to hurt you, I just want you to run all this stuff by me. You know, I'm not going to judge you. Like I don't judge them, and even at a younger age, like when she was in her teens, she would tell me stuff. It's probably not the best decision, but I ain't gonna hold that against you, though.
Right.
You know, because I do want y'all to tell me stuff because they tell me a lot of things, and I just be like, y'all hold thoughts out here, but you know,
I like that.
but I do appreciate it though, because that does show a level of trust that they have with me, and obviously
looking at me while I say it.
And I do have to make sure that my response is always a healthy response, you know, so where they can come back and tell me other things. If they tell me something that don't sound right, then we can talk about it. But for the most part, what I'm realizing that as a parent is that your kids just living their life, man. They just going through life just where you went through it. Parents forget that, man. Parents get to parenting and they forget that they used to be a young person doing young person stuff. And, you know, my kids are just doing normal young 20-year-old stuff.
To an extent.
Yeah, for the most part, you know. So I've had to kind of like, you know, I'm not that hard on them. They just going through. Well, hold up. Oh, I'm hard on you.
You must. Do you mean I'm not that hard on them in certain categories? Because I was forced to do a lot at a young age. Like I always had a good job, you know, pay my bills, blah blah whatever. And then this was something that we talked about in therapy, though. And we started talking about it the other day, but we didn't finish. Where I told you, I was like, you know, I feel like I'm never truly doing anything good enough, almost, just when it comes to you. Because, like, prime example, you know, I bought the house. I bought my first house at 23. And, you know, of course, you was like, yeah, you know, I didn't get that at 23. And then as soon as I bought the house, it was, get your insurance license. Then was, you know, for me, it just seemed like it was always something else I was needing to accomplish. So it was like, when is it gonna be like, you know what, I'm proud of everything that you've done, because at 23, my peers at 23 are not buying homes, and this is no shade to them, but they're not. You know, so here I am at 26, kind of like, yeah, well, what's next? Because I did everything. You know, my daddy said, save all your money, go buy a house. So I did. You know, go get your license, go do this. Okay, so I do that. So, you know, now what? Which I do know and appreciate that all of it is setting me up for something greater. You know, when I do hit 30, I'm not going to be out here trying to figure out what I'm doing, financially at least. You know, so I do appreciate it, but this was kind of talking about our conversation the other day when we was talking. He was like, so you feel like I don't give you no attention? I'm like, nah, it's not that I don't feel like that, but I do feel like it's so much on me to set the tone for the rest of the kids and to also make sure that my parents, everything that they're working for lives on even if something was to happen to them. Mm-hmm. That can be a lot of pressure.
You the oldest?
Yes.
Birth lottery. That's what they call it.
I think it's a combination of being the oldest and being more like him. So he knows, okay, if I tell Lacey to go do this, eventually she gonna go do it. And I know if anything happened to me, they're gonna be okay. You know, so I feel like it's a combination of both. But it is a lot of pressure.
Here's the thing, like, and I'm just saying as a child that comes from a big family. I'm the oldest out of 6. And some parents put more attention to the weak child. I put more attention to the strong child. Mm. And I think that's the mistake that parents make. They go out of their way to coddle the child that they feel like probably is not going to make it without them. But I am hard on Lacey because I do expect more out of Lacey because she's shown more. The thing about me as a parent, once you show me you can do more, you done messed up now. So you should have just kept being mediocre because when you show me you can be excellent, then I expect excellence from you. And everything is about legacy and like once you become a parent, everything is about, like, hey, what am I leaving behind? Mm-hmm. When you become a parent, you don't get to still go live your best life. You know what I'm saying? Because now everything you do is about helping your children live their best life.
Right.
And so, she's my most responsible child. And like I said, I'm just a little bit different than other parents. I'm going to stay on the more responsible child a little bit more because if I don't wake up tomorrow, I can depend on her to handle business, until that changes. But right now, she's the most responsible child. So there's a lot of responsibility that comes along with being responsible. But she's handled it well. And so she's right to feel how she feels as far as, and she's doing great. And I've told her many a times that I'm proud of her. Obviously, I haven't told her enough if she's expressing that here today, but certainly extremely proud of the young lady that she has become and proud of where she's going as well. So she's very aware, and being self-aware is something that a lot of folks don't have that, but she's got it. She's very self-aware of who she is and who she's not. And sometimes being aware of who you're not is more important than being aware of who you are. So shout out to her because she's very self-aware. So she's doing exceptionally well. And it's not easy having me as her father, I'm sure. Because I truly believe that children in their 20s, they have a great opportunity. If you're in your 20s and you don't have no kids, you ain't got no husband, there's nothing stopping you. That's not the time for you to go out here and do stupid stuff. That's the time for you to really take chances. Take chances on where you're trying to be at financially. And then she bought her first house in her early 20s. She quit her job. You can take those chances when you don't have kids and you don't have a husband, you don't have nobody to answer to. So that's when you're supposed to be building the foundation of your wealth is in your 20s, early 30s, but when you start having children, of course you can still do it, but now you got to think about, man, I got these kids, let me make sure I do what's best for them first. And because I had a child, I had her when I was like 22. So, at 22, you have a child, your whole life changes. And so my thing for them is while they're in their 20s, take chances, go out here and set yourself up nice while you can take risk. You can take more risk when you don't have, like I said before, children.
Lacey, what advice would you give anyone considering therapy, but I guess for some reason holding back, whether it be just the black culture and how the family perceives therapy, or just scared to take that step?
Um, I think that first we have to get out of the mindset of, in order to go to therapy, something has to be extremely wrong with you. You don't have to be to the point of suicide in order to then need therapy. Like, by that point, it's just kind of almost too late, you know? So you can go to therapy just because you're good in life. Like, I still attend my therapy sessions, even though I ain't got nothing to talk about. So we talk about the good, because those things need acknowledgement just as much as the negative and the bad and stuff like that. So I would just tell them to just kind of do it. Don't even, because when you start telling people, therapy is the same thing as when you want to go and do something, start a business or something. You start telling people, then people start telling you bad stuff about why not to do it. Therapy works the same way. As soon as you start saying, you know, I think I'm considering therapy. Oh, you don't need to do that. Or why would you want to talk to somebody about your problems or pay somebody? It's not about that. This is a professional, you know, clearly trying to do something on your own for so long. If that's landing you in the same place mentally and emotionally, then you need to seek help. You know, not waiting until the point where it becomes like a diagnosis of depression, or, you know, now you're on suicide watch and stuff like that. So, I mean, my advice to people who need therapy is just go, really. Just do it. You know, the first session is always your most intimidating session, and it's going to pull out some things that you don't even want to discover. Like, you're going to cry, but at the end of that session, your therapist is going to tell you, like, that was the point in the session. Like, so
And what about any? I'm gonna just say women, but any women that feel like they want a repaired or a better relationship with their dad, like how would you have them go about that as well? What steps to take, even if it's just with the dad, like what steps to take towards, I guess, clean up their relationship with their dad?
Yeah, I think that on our end, if we're the ones that's wanting that relationship with them, you do have to be open to receive the effort that they're giving you. You know, so I think that's very important. You can't keep saying, you know, I want a relationship with my father, or my daddy ain't, you know, because that's the most popular line today, is how everybody daddy ain't, you know. So it's like, instead of continuing to live by that narrative because it's popular, why don't you call your father and express, you know, hey, I want a better relationship with you. And maybe this is probably the 10th time that you've done so, but maybe it didn't go nowhere because you couldn't even receive it. You weren't in a space of receiving what he was trying to give to start, you know, building that foundation. So my advice is to definitely just receive wherever that's coming. It's probably not going to be what you're expecting, but it's a start. So you have to receive it in order for it to go anywhere past that.
What about you, as far as dads with their children? Like, how would you, if they want to get that repaired?
Well,
or if they just don't know about it.
First thing you got to do as a parent is that you got to be willing to, you know, respect your child's vantage point. And when you're going, especially if you're going through a divorce, I mean, because that's when everything went downhill with me and my children, the divorce. And divorce is a very traumatic event for all parties involved. And sometimes the husband and the wife are so, or the boyfriend and the girlfriend, or whatever the situation is, they're so caught up in the breakup and everything that comes along with that they don't realize that these kids are the real victims. And, you know, and so, and I'm speaking from that perspective because that was our situation, you know, going through the divorce. That's when things really, you know, got really bad, especially for Lacey being the oldest child, the most responsible child. Ended up having to not just take care of her little sister, but also her mom. You know, so there was a lot of trauma there. And so basically, once she expressed to me that there was some trauma, that not just dealing with her mama, you know, joke, I got some trauma with you too. You know, I was, you know, you got to be open to that. And I think some parents are not open to that. They're not, you know, they want to defend themselves. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, if you really, really, really want to help these children grow up to be productive adults, you know, you're going to have to, you know, sit back and you're going to have to own some of this stuff. You're going to have to go get on the couch somewhere probably I believe in therapy because I went to therapy and therapy saved my life. And so it helped me figure some things out. And so I would tell any parent, go to therapy. You need therapy, too. You know what I'm saying? Go to therapy and you learn how to be a better communicator and a better listener. The problem that parents have is that we don't listen, and it's because we've got so much experience because we've been here before. We feel like, we can basically examine and diagnose our children, without them getting a proper diagnosis and a proper examination by real professionals. And sometimes we just want to make that diagnosis on ourselves. Oh, you just being disrespectful. Nah, that child might be dealing with some trauma.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's coming from somewhere, where is that coming from? So take the time out to really, sit down with these kids and listen to what they have to say and, and be concerned about their emotional and mental health. And so I'm a big proponent of mental health, and I know that it's real. And I know that I don't want to make girls, because I was going to say, I just speak from my experience dealing with my daughters. I know they've, and they still have stuff that they still have to go talk about. Like Lacey said, things are going great. I need to talk about that. Mm-hmm. I need to, make sure that I'm handling that, the best. But I would tell any parent to just listen to your children. Don't get defensive. Don't get in your feelings. Ultimately, you want to be looking at your kids 10 years later and, they're doing well and, they are productive members of society because, they can go back and look back. Well, you know what? Me and my dad had this conversation and it really, helped me get back on track and to do the things I needed to do. And you don't want these kids to spiral out of control because you didn't. It's kids out here right now, like some of my daughter friends probably, some of maybe a little younger than her, and they're just doing things to hurt themselves because nobody's listening to them. And so some of these parents, they just don't, you got to listen to these kids, regardless whether or not you think it's valid or not. You still got to listen and you got to really receive it. And I think it's my receiving of everything that Lacey had to tell me is what helped her, overcome a lot of trauma and get her life on a certain track. And I believe that's what most young people, they just want to be heard. They just want to be heard. They want to be acknowledged. And I just encourage every parent to do that.
You got any closing words, Lacey?
No.
You sure? Nah, I like the conversation. I do. I like a lot of it. I think I playback value, but I do think that people watching this going to learn a lot from it if they receive it well. Spoke a lot about y'all relationship and just being open. Even y'all saying things now, you may face it, but not like faces like. What you mean by that? It was all just openness, and I like that a lot. I try to do the same thing. I do think that I give you kudos too. Just being that's strong to do, to be okay with taking that much blame and still pushing forward and trying to repair that. A lot of people, you see movies, you see the smallest thing, people like, F it, get out of here, get out of my face. I'm trying, you ain't taking it. Oh well, but that's a lot, and I don't necessarily like know per se like how you are. But just with the facial expressions, I can tell sometimes you might not be that easy to deal with. So I just think that it's a good thing. No, it's a good thing because you seem to be so calm and chill. Probably not all the time. Okay, I get it. I know you're gonna try to tell me that. I get it, not all the time, but and then for you, I just think that also like what he said as far as I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm proud of you. Just so start back up on Monday. Every Monday to tell you proud. Be sincere though. But I do think that people like you that do a lot of stuff, it's hard to keep saying you're proud of them because again, naturally you just assume that you know that, but you might not know that, But you do a lot of good things. So we be saying that every day, kind of technically speaking. Yeah, we be saying that every day. Cause every day I look up, or every time you post something, it's always a compliment. Something you're doing, something new you're taking on. Like last week, just being consistent. Now you want to keep doing that. I'm proud of you for being consistent. I'm proud of you for, stepping out your shell. And I'm proud of you for not making a mean face right now. So you're smiling. Proud of you.
It's therapy.
I'm proud of you for going to therapy and continuing on and pushing the culture forward. Because like I said, a lot of people don't look at therapy as a positive tool. There's always negative connotations that come with it. So, yeah.
But I'll say this too, because the reason why I'm able to sit here and because other parents may say, man, that's a lot to have to sit there and take. But like, I'm able to sit here and to take this because it's really it's about her growth. And if you really care about your children, you're gonna let them sit. You're gonna sit down and listen to what they had to say. Like I said, one day your kid's gonna tell you that they was tired of you doing all these damn podcasts instead of spending time with them.
Yeah, I agree. And I asked him, I started thinking what you said, so I asked her a lot, I talked to them a lot. And she watched the thing. I talked to them a lot. I asked them real serious questions, right? But I could also see them being like 20, 22 and being like, I was 10. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like now I have to keep asking them questions. I thought I was doing good. So you know what? Damn, they 10 years old. Of course you're going to say yeah. You know?
Yeah, this fun. It's fun right now.
I'd be like, I spend that time with you? Yeah, sure. Okay. 10 years from now, like, nah, you was never there. You kept so I gotta make sure I keep asking.
But listen, man, it's a juggling act being a parent, man. Like I say, my perspective and vantage point as an adult going through all of this, of course, it's going to be different from that of a child. And I just think that parents are so caught up in, because parents know the facts. They know what's really going on. But the child's perception of it is also a fact. That's their reality. And I think that if more parents could when you see these kids out there hurting themselves, man, that's because ain't nobody listening to them, including their mama and they dad. And so they result to hurting themselves and making bad decisions because nobody's listening to them. And so it's easy for me to sit here and listen to Lacey, talk about whatever she want to talk about, because I'm proud of her healing process. I'm proud of where she is now emotionally, being able to handle things, man. There's a lot of power in taking the blame. It's always my fault. I mean, that's just the greatest leaders. They don't blame other people. So just remember that leaders don't. If you want to blame your child, you ain't no leader. You ain't leading nothing. If it's your child, the child don't know no better than the child. How you gonna blame the child? You don't blame the child, man. That's on you. You're going to have to eat that. You're going to have to own that if you're a real leader. So, yeah, so it's nothing for me to sit here and just listen to Lacey talk about, things that she dealt with as a child and that whole experience. I mean, that's a part of leadership.
All right, man. Look, this was dope. I had an amazing conversation. I think there's a lot of gems in here, too, if you just sit back and listen. It's kind of hard. I got a lot of notes. I don't have this much notes normally, but I got a lot of points I'm trying to break it down and see. But I appreciate y'all coming through. Y'all always welcome to come on. You're a great speaker. You speak well too. But that's my favorite though. So I gotta give him a little extra props.
It's only because of me that you even know.
Not really.
Well,
not
that's
really.
not really
not
true.
Really.
You didn't even know.
He knew me before.
That's not really
y'all
true.
didn't know each other for real.
You the middleman. You kind of connect. But I'm saying he knew of me. He knew of me. He kind of knew of me already.
Yeah, I did know of him, but I think when I found out that you knew him, I was like, hold up. Okay,
yeah, Olive Branch.
And then I saw you on his. I saw you do do a podcast with him. So okay, hold up. You know this guy. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of how it all got. But
he didn't know you.
She don't like the fact all her people like
because it's favorite.
My favorite though. What's on that?
Her problem is all her people like me. She bring anybody around me, whether it's a guy, one of these.
They don't be knowing you for real.
Likable guy, man. Very
obviously,
likable
I don't know them either. So clearly, I didn't know them either because they was a whole.
Okay, let's wrap this up.
He went 5 minutes, went crazy 5 minutes. I ain't cut him off at all. Weak.
Boom. I'm like, oh my gosh. Slow down.
Yeah, man. That's going to be a gem, man. They have to watch the full thing to see that. That's funny. But I do appreciate y'all for coming through, though. Normally you say, all right, and then we go from there. But, all right, cool. All right, cool. All right, One Man's Podcast, we out. Here we go.